Hi there, and welcome to the tutorial series for the Animal Behavior Kit. In this tutorial, we'll be taking a look at the engaged behaviors for all of the ground animals. We'll be taking a look at all of the different engaged behaviors. We'll look at what are the engaged target modes, and we'll look at some of the details for the predators that we skipped in the last video. So if we go over and jump to Unreal, we are just exactly where we left off. If you recall from the last video, if you've been looking at these tutorial series in order, we looked at all of the different options for roaming behavior. And if we go under setup behavior, you'll see that we have a bunch of different options for roam behavior, right? We looked at all of these settings, including use home base. We looked at random movement. We looked at behavior details here, and we looked at behavior location, follow path, POI, and we looked at some of the debug options that we have for the animal. However, we skipped through some of the engaged behavior, and that's engaged behavior right here, engaged target behavior, and some of the behavior details for the predators that you see right here. All right, so for this video, let's go ahead and bring another animal here. We're going to bring a predator. So if you recall a few videos back, we created our own little class called BP Doe Tutorial. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. So if we go back to characters, animals, ground animals, let's go to predators, and let's just clone BP Predator Bear. So go ahead and right click and say duplicate, and let's call it BP Bear _ tutorial. And we are going to move this guy to the tutorial folder and click on move here. And now we have this guy right here. And if we open him, click on open full blueprint if you see it this way, and go to the viewport, notice that it's very much the same as the deer. But if you recall what I said when we first looked at the class, the collision _ attack for the deer was very small. Notice how for the bear, I increased the sphere radius and I moved the sphere. This sphere is effectively the melee range of the bear. When the bear attacks, does the attack animation, if any actor, any pawn is within this sphere, it will receive the damage that this bear is applying. And remember, we are using the Unreal's default damage system, meaning that we're doing apply damage and receive damage. So the bear will automatically damage any character in your game that is already using the Unreal damage system automatically out of the box, and you can damage the bear automatically out of the box as long as you're using the standard damage system. So remember, when you're importing your own animal and changing the mesh, based on the size of the mesh and the animation, you may want to adjust this collision sphere called collision _ attack, because this is what determines the area for melee range. Okay, I just wanted to point that out because you can see here that it's way bigger. That, for example, in the deer case, look at collision attack, way smaller, right? Versus the bear, way bigger. Okay, so let's go. Oh, and by the way, the bear doesn't have any other components, which we're not going to be using until later on. So let's go ahead and drop the bear in our scene, this guy right here, and let's go back to the deer real quick, and we're going to use the roam behavior. We are going to select stay in place, and for engage we are going to select ignore. Actually, you know what, for now let's go ahead and select flee. You know what? No, let's go in order. Sorry. Let's select ignore. It's going to stay in place and it's going to ignore any kind of engagement. And then for the bear, we are going to have this guy roam in a random location, but then the engaged behavior is going to be attack. So the bear's going to be roaming around, and if it detects the deer, it'll actually attack. However, if the deer detects the bear, it'll just ignore it and it'll just stand still. In other words, it'll just stand still while the bear attacks and kills the deer, which obviously would not be the default for your game. We also have the concept of engage tags, and you can see here, if you expand, by default, the deer or the prey has predator and player. And if you click on the bear, by default, the bear will engage with prey and player. And we are using tags, so you can add as many tags or remove the tags as you want. So what happens is, when the AI perception system detects another pawn, it'll check whether that pawn has one of the tags inside this array. If it does not, it'll ignore the pawn. If it does have a tag that's included in this array, then it'll proceed to use the engaged behavior that is selected here. What that means is that every single predator can be configured to attack a specific prey. So, for example, if you want all of the deer to have tag, let's say deer, you could tell this bear that you only want this bear to attack deer, and you can change prey to deer. And then this bear will only attack the deer. And you may have other species. You may have, spiders. You may have wolves. You may have whatever. But the bear will only attack deer. Conversely, you can tell the deer to only react to bears. You can change, instead of predator, you can say bear. Or you can make it really specific. So on a per animal basis, you can change which types of animals your animal will engage with. And just as a convenience, when you click on the animal, for example, deer, and you search for tag, way at the bottom, you'll see that the deer already comes with 3 actor tags by default. Animal, which every single animal already comes with this tag by default. So you know that is already an animal. In this case, the deer is prey, automatically has the tag prey based on the behavior, and the species of the animal is also added as a tag by default. That means that by default, you can choose a species to attack, a type of animal, or just literally any animal, and it'll work out of the box. That's just for convenience, right? If you click on the bear, and you'll see, what does the bear have? The bear has animal, predator, and in this case prey. We probably want to change that because it shouldn't be there, prey, but you get the point, right? It should be the species here. So these are things that appear by default, but you can add tags to the animal as well by doing additional tags. If you go under setup, general, and you scroll all the way down under additional tags, you can have as many additional tags added automatically here. So what that means is, now if you want the bear to attack a specific species, you say, okay, well, I just want the bear to attack any prey, or I want the bear to attack only deer. So let's go ahead and change deer for the bear and erase player, because we don't want the bear to attack us. And what happens now when we hit play is the bear will automatically get the deer and attack the deer, as you can see here. Notice that the text is red. If you recall, on the general settings, we were able to specify the color of the engaged text, and the default is red. So the deer is engaged right now, and even though it's doing nothing, it's ignoring, it's still engaged. And the bear is engaged and is attacking the deer. Notice that the bear is ignoring me because the tag player was removed. And what happens is, eventually, the deer dies, and the bear moves on. And the deer, as expected, despawns in 10 seconds, and now the bear goes around to its regular roam behavior, which was roam randomly in the nav mesh. Where were we? Here. Okay. Notice again the settings here. Engage name, display color red. And this is what was happening. All right. So now let's change this a little bit. Let's say that we want the engage behavior to be flee. So the roam behavior will be stay in place, but as soon as it engages with any predator, or actually let's remove player because we don't want to affect the behavior. Every time it sees any predator, which this guy is a predator, it'll actually flee. And this guy, every time it sees a deer, it will attack. And now we hit play. And you can see that the deer is running away. And notice that it's going a little bit slower because of that 50% speed debuff that we looked at the previous video. That's the hurt factor. And that allows the bear to continue to catch up to the deer. Let's do something real quick, guys. It's kind of annoying me. Let's go to the general and let's tick out show HUD and proximity. That way we don't have to be nearby to look at the health of the deer. And let's move the bear here, for example, just to make it pretty obvious what's happening. Yeah, so now you can see that they're both engaged. The bear is following around and it attacks the deer, and the deer is taking damage, and the deer is trying to run away. We're going to take a look at some settings in just a second as to why the bear is waiting, for example, X amount of seconds before it attacks. But you can see now that the deer is taking damage and going around. Where's the bear? Here. Okay, let's see. Here, if we go under behavior details predator, we'll see some settings here. We see that there's a melee damage type. You can do single damage, or you can do area of effect damage. We're going to test that in a second here. You have attack frequency, in this case every 2 seconds. You actually have an aggro timer. How long will the animal keep aggro when out of melee range? And a disengage timer, which basically means that once the animal is disengaged, it cannot engage again for, in this case, 5 seconds. So, what is the aggro timer? The aggro timer means that if the animal is engaged, but it's not yet in melee range of the prey, of whatever it's chasing, after 20 seconds, it'll actually disengage. And again, if you ever played games like World of Warcraft or any other MMO, and if you try to kite a mob too far, and the mob cannot get to you, after a certain amount of time, it'll actually disengage and go back to its original position. So that's actually what it is. And this is, again, to prevent the AI from basically eternally, indefinitely following a target. So if the deer is really fast and the bear cannot catch it, after 20 seconds the bear will simply disengage. And once it disengages, it cannot engage again for 5 seconds. And the reason for that is because as soon as it disengages, the AI perception may detect the deer immediately, like half a second later, and the bear will immediately try to chase. In essence, then you won't even ever understand that the bear is actually disengaging, right? The aggro timer would not work in that case. So you need to have a specific cooldown period where the animal is just not engaging, right? So you'll see that in a second here. But the attack frequency every 2 seconds, and the damage type is, in this case, single damage. So how do we test that? Let's go ahead and go back to behavior. And let's go ahead and switch back to ignore. So these guys are just staying here. And I am going to duplicate the deer. I'm going to put this guy right here and right here. So they're kind of overlapped. Well, let's make them a little bit farther apart. Like here maybe. And now we're going to have this guy attack. Every 2 seconds, but he's going to be doing single damage. So we hit play, and let's see what happens here. So this guy is attacking this guy right here on the right, and the other guys are just kind of chilling there. Nothing else is happening. So it's doing single damage. However, if we change this to AoE damage, area of effect damage, and we click play, let's see what happens now. Notice now that these two are now receiving damage, and they're both engaged. So even though this guy's target is the one in the middle, for example, this guy right here is getting damage. And what is the AoE area? Is that trace area that we talked about right here. This is the area of AoE damage. And we can actually debug that, I believe. Let me see if I can, trying to remember here, if I ended up leaving the option. Yep, melee range. So if you debug melee range, you can see actually the attack right there. See that? That is the trace that the animal is doing every 2 seconds. If you are inside this sphere, you will take damage. And if you're doing AoE damage, any actor that's inside this sphere will receive damage. Look at myself on the left-hand corner. I'm actually receiving damage myself. You can see my health going down. Even though the bear isn't even attacking me, I'm not even, he's not even engaged with me because the tag player is being removed. However, because I'm using the standard damage system, I'm also getting damaged by the AoE. And you can see that now the 2 deer are now dead and the bear disengages. Alright, and now the bear is engaging with this guy right here. And the same thing, if I step inside, you can see that I'm also taking damage. So, that is one way that you can basically effectively have AoE damage or single damage. And of course, remember, you can change the attack frequency here. And I know it can be a little unintuitive, but if you wanted to change the damage amount, you have to go to Setup General, and you go under Animal Details, and right here you have damage amount. And right now damage amount is 1, which is very low. You should probably change that to whatever, 4, for example. And you can also change the animal HP here. And the species here is prey, which is actually wrong. So if we go back to here, let's just change that right now. Which is why you had the wrong tag earlier. Right here you have species. Bear. And now, if you look at the tags all the way to the bottom, then you can see that now this guy is an animal, he's a predator, and he's also a bear. Now if I click play, remember now we have the frequency every 4 seconds. The damage to be 4 instead of 1, and you see how quickly the bear is killing the deer because it's doing way more damage now. So you have the ability to change the damage of the animals, and you also have the ability to change the frequency. Alright, so we've done engage behavior, we've done engage behavior details predator, and oh, engage target is the last thing that I wanted to share with you guys. So engage target behavior, fixated versus nearest. Fixated is the default, meaning once it gets a target, it'll try to follow that target and kill the target. Nearest means that every single time if it finds a target that is closer, it'll switch to a new target. So if I have these guys here, there's 3 deer, and we're going to change their behaviors to stay in place, ignore to flee. The bear is simply going to attack the nearest target. You'll see how the bear, let's see if we can get that going. Picks a target, it starts attacking the target. I should have turned the trace off, but you can see that the bear is now following one of the deer. The deer are just running, but as they run around, in this case, it'll just try to pick the nearest target. And right now, unfortunately, the other deer are really far away, so it's kind of hard to show you guys. But if you enclose them really in a really small space, you'll see that that you can actually switch targets to whatever's nearest. So it'll do a trace, and then it'll choose the nearest target, and it'll have that as the target to attack. All right. I think we're gonna stop right here, guys. Just for time's sake, I'm trying to keep the videos relatively short. I know we didn't look at every single permutation here, so please feel free to experiment with all of the different options. But I don't want to make these videos way too long. Actually, sorry, before we do that, I have not, let me just hit ignore and stay in place. I did not show you guys hide and defend. That is actually important. Hold on. We do want to make sure that that is happening. So hide is different from flee. We're gonna go ahead and drop a few cubes here. Let's see, towards the bottom here. 5, 5, 5. And we're gonna duplicate some cubes here. Let's see, here and here, something like that. And the reason for that is so they have an option to go out of LOS. And now we're going to grab our does, and I want them to roam behavior will be random location within bounds, these bounds, and then I want them, when they engage, I want them to try and hide. But I don't want them to engage with predators. I want them to engage with me only, with the player. So what is the difference between flee and hide? Flee will basically detect where the threat is, the target, and try to go in the opposite direction and just run away. Hide will actually try to find the location that is out of line of sight from the target. So if they're roaming around here and I come here, they'll try to find the place behind a certain object that is out of line of sight. So I'm going to start here just to give my deer a chance to go to the location. Whoops. Go to random location within bounds. Try and hide. And let's go to setup general simulation, and let's change the radius to the default 30,000. That way, when I'm far, they'll actually be active and go to their location. Click play, and now we're going to zoom in, and you can see them in the distance. Go to a random location within the volume. They're active, and now as I'm going towards them, you can see that they engage. You can see that the text turns red, and this deer actually goes to a place that's behind LOS for me. It tries to find the place behind. You can see there, hides. Same thing for this guy right here. And you can see that they're trying to hide. This usually requires a little bit of refinement. This is using the environment query system, EQS. And right now I have the grid. It basically creates a virtual grid in the world and tries to find a place that is out of LOS. Right now the grid is pretty sparse, not very dense, and I do that for performance reasons. If you really like this behavior and you really want them to hide, right, in a very nice way, shoot me an email or go to the Discord, and I will send you how to change the EQS query to make the grid way more dense. It'll basically enhance this behavior way more. It'll actually find a much better place, but at the cost of performance. All right. And lastly, I wanted to show you guys the defend behavior. And I'm going to do it with this bear here. So engage behavior, you can see that we have flee, try, hide, defend, and attack. Defend, basically, the bear will try to defend a specific location. And you can see that we have our own little section here for defend. You can see it right here, behavior defend. I'm going to collapse everything else, actually take out the debug here. And you can see that we have a few options here. The important ones are max distance from location. We're going to keep it at 5,000 here. You can play with that. What is the defense location type? Will it try to defend this current location or a specific location? And if it is a specific location, which one is it? What is the reference? And what is the inspection time? So if you leave it as is, and you engage the bear as the current location, it'll try to defend the current location that it has, meaning it will attack you and try to have you run away from that location and try to stand its ground, right? Or you can have a specific location, and I think that's way more useful. That's the method that I use on the showcase level. So if we go to blueprints, AI, actors, ground AI, navigation, sorry, too many things here, and you have BP AI defend location, and you drop this guy in the world, you can see that it's like a little volume here. So what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and grab a cylinder, drop it in this location here, and let's make this, I don't know, like 10 by 10. And the reason for that is so we can visualize that location, right? You don't actually have to have this here, but this is for us once we're in play mode, so we know exactly what the defend location is. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the bear and go to behavior defend and say, no, we actually want to defend a specific location. And if you go to the drop down, there's only one, so select that. And the inspection time is how long will the animal stay in the location before attacking the player or the other animal, right? So in other words, what happens here is the bear will be minding its own business. As soon as you overlap this volume here, it'll go back to the bear and say, hey, somebody's attacking your defense location, and the bear will rush to the location, inspect the location for a specific amount of time, and then attack the target. And if you go to the defend location here, you see that we have a few options like whether it's active or not, what ground animals it'll call upon. So you can add here a ground animal, and you can use the dropper to select this bear. And then the actor tags that it'll recognize. In other words, it wants any animal, anytime a pawn overlaps, does the actor have the tag either animal or player? By default, animal is included in every single animal, and then player. Again, the reason we want that is because we want to make sure that we control what triggers the defense behavior. So if you have like a little squirrel, for example, you probably don't want the squirrel to trigger this massive bear to come, because the squirrel is probably not a threat, right? Or a little bird that lands there or whatever. But maybe you want other predators to be part of the tags. So maybe animal is too broad. Maybe you want predator here. And all of the predators by default have this tag. Or you can select the species of the animal, right? Maybe you want other bears. Any other bears that come here will trigger this, for example, or something else, right? And what happens is, as soon as this is triggered, this blueprint will call upon any of the animals here and will tell them to come defend this location here. So as a matter of fact, you could have the engaged behavior be something completely different. You could have this as ignore, for example, and you want the roam behavior of this bear to be go to random location in nav mesh. But as soon as you hit this location, it'll change the engaged behavior to defend, and it'll call the bear to come defend this area. All right? I know that I'm giving you a lot of information. I'm kind of rushing here because the video is getting a little too long. But let's just see what happens here. Right now, the bear is going to roam around and ignore anybody that engages, so you can see. But as soon as I go into this area here, it'll try to come and defend it. So I hit play, and the bear is just going around. And you can see that the bear is not doing anything here. Whoops. Let's make sure that we take that off here and take this out as well. All right. And we can see that the bear is just roaming around. There you go. And as soon as I hit this area here, notice that the bear is now engaged and is coming straight at me to try to defend this location. It inspects the location for about 1 second, and then it right now is ignoring me because the engaged behavior is ignore. But if I had this guy doing engage, and the behavior will be attack, let's say player, and I'm going to be all the way here. The bear is just roaming around doing nothing, and as soon as I hit this location, the bear is going to rush back and try to defend the location. It'll inspect the location for about 1 second, and then it'll attack me. And you can see it's doing a lot of damage right now to me. All right. Now, why is this useful to have an array? Because now I can actually duplicate the bears. And if I come here, I can now pick as many animals as I want to come defend this location. So it doesn't have to be just one animal, it could be several animals. You can have a pack of wolves defend their home, for example. And now all of the bears are doing their random things, but as soon as I hit this location here, I'm gonna go into God mode, by the way, which looks red. All of the bears now come defend and are now attacking me because now I've actually gone to their location to defend. If I go out of God mode, they're gonna kill me pretty quickly here, as you can see. All right, so hopefully I've explained it correctly here, guys. The defend behavior is definitely one of the areas that I like to expand in a future update. I feel like I can do a lot more with it, but at least for the initial release, I feel that it gives you the basic functionality that I've intended, right? The basic intention is to have a nest or an area where cubs are if you're an aggressive animal, and if the player or any other animal goes in there, you want that animal to rush back and defend it. All right, guys, so we took a look at all of the different engaged behaviors. We looked at the engaged target mode, which can be fixated or nearest, and we looked at some of the specific details for predators, like the frequency of attack, the type of damage, which could be even AoE or single target, etc. In the next video, we are going to now start looking at all of the different systems that can be added to the animal. So far, we've only looked at the default behavior of your ground animal. We have a lot of different components that you can add to further increase the behavior of your animal. So next up is going to be going through all of the different systems that you can add. All right, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.